how would you address unconscious bias in real time? Have you had that happen yet, or?
Yeah. So I will say this. I do think the the best way to address it in real time is to ensure that everyone who's a part of the decision making process, whatever that is, can use the same language. The same language. It's defined the same way, because when you see it and you're able to call it out, and you see it because you're on the outside of the situation and you can call it out, it becomes really successful change when the person who's involved, or the person who is unfortunately making a biased decision, when you approach them, they can also connect, because you're using the same language and you're defining it the same way. So I think the organizations that see real change are the ones that have embraced the language. They've embraced concepts and definitions that when you see it, you can call it out in real time consistently, and that's how you're able to drive change. But then you empower your people. You create the context where individuals are willing to be held accountable, and they actually invite each other to hold them accountable. And so for me, for my team, I've mentioned to them, and I've asked them many times, if you see me making a decision, or it feels like the decision or the direction I'm going feels biased, then I need you to tell me, because that's the unique and that's the unique issue with unconscious bias, is that it's unconscious.
You don't know you're doing it. Yeah. I was just going to say, how else, that's why I asked about it, because how else would you, because you don't know you're necessarily doing it, you're not doing it maliciously necessarily, so you need somebody to call you out in real time. It's funny,
and you have to remove the stigma associated with unconscious bias. If you do that, then people will be less on edge, and they'll be willing to move freely. And when they are called out, they're not being called out and being called bad individuals. They're simply being called to be better individuals.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's an important nuance there. It's funny. I came from a Big Four consulting firm, and they implemented this leadership program. And part of it was real-time feedback, but then also upward feedback. So you could give it to your supervisor. And the real-time it took a little getting used to be honest. But to your point, once people start speaking the same language, like, oh, I'd like to give you some real-time feedback or some upward feedback, then it became more of a safe environment to have those candid conversations. So I like what you're 100%. Saying about that. Yeah. It stung a little at first, but but like you said, it made me better. So
yeah, when it becomes a value in the organization, you actually, what starts to happen is people start to open themselves up. And I'm starting to see that now within tech systems, where we've got leaders that are making hiring or promotion decisions, and they are presenting their process ahead of time to folks like myself or to some of my peers, and asking, hey, take a look at this process and help me see what I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
And that's because we've started to turn this corner to where being more conscientious and cognizant of your bias is it's a value of great, and it's actually a value of great leadership.
Yeah.
And so we can convince people to think about it and look at it from that perspective. I think it'll take some of that sting that you talk about, that some people definitely feel in the beginning.